they don't want the road there, and it's a big battle. Basically, we're yes, sir. Councilmember Overend, yes, sir. We're still.
You know, Greg is an awesome guy.
Yeah. Hot mics. Thanks, Greg. Ready to go? Yeah, I'll announce it after roll call, okay? We'll call to order the regular committee of the whole meeting. Can we please begin with roll call?
Councilmember Shemmers.
Here.
Whip.
Here.
Seeley.
Here.
Davis.
Here.
Overend.
Here.
Mussman.
Here.
Kearns.
Here.
Okay, I'm gonna change the agenda just a little bit. Our attorney needs to get rolling, and he's in 2C and 2D. So we're gonna start with 2C. Councilmember Shemmers.
Yeah, I wasn't ready for notice.
Do you want me to start with Councilmember Kearns?
Yeah, that's fine. Hers will probably be a little
Okay, Councilmember Kearns, 2D.
Okay. We worked on the animal ordinance. I actually, am I supposed to read this first? Should
You can do whatever you'd like to present.
Okay. I'd like to present on the amendment of Chapter 91, which is the animal ordinance. We've had several hoarding cases in the last couple years, and when the team worked on the ordinance, we actually considered putting a limit on the number of animals you can have in a single house. And because we've had these hoarding cases, a judge actually suggested we put a limit in on the number of animals you can have in a house. And so I would like to propose that we maybe change that to a maximum number of 6 cat, dog, ferret, and rabbits within one single residence. And I would entertain any questions.
Rhonda, I have a question.
I'm sure you do.
So we have an ordinance on this.
Not a maximum number in a single.
So, but what part of that ordinance doesn't allow us to do what we need to do?
We let them have, and let me see if I can get this wording close to being right. We let them have as many animals as they can have as long as they can provide healthful sanitary conditions.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it be 1 or 50, we don't care.
Mm-hmm.
But we've run into the situation where we have people that are not providing the sanitary conditions. So even if we limit the number of animals, that is still a requirement.
Yeah, but so if you're running into situations where the conditions aren't sanitary, the ordinance allows you to take care of it. So I guess that's where I'm confused.
Well, I guess the thought is that this may curb some people from acquiring so many animals and getting in that situation. Because I don't think every hoarder ends up, they don't start out thinking if I have 6 animals, I'm going to end up with 30.
Yeah.
They start out with 6 and then they see something and they, just bring it in and they end up with that.
If I live on a farm on the west end of town, and I got 10 acres, and I got some farm cats and a couple dogs, I'm already well over 6. But what, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And I know lots of situations similar to that.
And I didn't consider that. Maybe there needs to be an acreage or inside-outside animals. I didn't consider that. Pat, what would be your thought on something like that?
Well, I mean, Councilmember Seeley's saying conceptually you can enforce the way it's currently written. And his position is, it sounds to me like his position is if you arbitrarily limit it to 6, that's one way, I guess, to get at it.
Yeah, I was just confused because I read our ordinance and I was like, well, we've got an enforcement mechanism here, so why do we have to have that number?
I think it's just a deterrent. More than anything, I think it's for people that, might just consider not taking in 12 cats as opposed to 3.
But is it an issue for us if they have 12 cats and they're all perfully healthy and
Well, I
causing
don't think,
no issues?
I don't think we'd ever get called into that situation.
But they'd be breaking the law.
But wasn't there in the ordinance in place that you had to have so much square foot per animal?
That's for a pen or outside housing.
Outside stuff.
Would that be the same as a farm of 10 acres? I mean, wouldn't that?
Well, most of the hoarding situations, they're inside. So that would be the
Yeah.
difference there.
Were they like the hoarding situations that we had? Were all the animals registered with the city? Is that how we knew there was too many, or is it we got called
No,
in?
it was,
That'd be a lot of income.
We got called in after the fact when
it was complaints from neighbors.
Okay.
And it was very horrible.
I don't doubt that.
But we were able to take care of the situation, right?
It does put a strain, though, on the process.
It's just if you have the deterrent, if you say 6 only, some people get in over their head. It's not that they intend to be neglectful of their pets, but the more you get of them, the more certain people who aren't as responsible as others get into trouble, and that's where this is headed. So it's really a policy decision for the council.
Okay.
Whether you want to just go off a straight enforcement scheme, which we currently have, or if you want to have a pet limit. There was some discussion of, whether birds should be included, and we thought no, because birds you can cage a lot of parakeets safely and clean.
But maybe not sanitary.
Yeah, right, but it's just that maybe, so we didn't go there, but
bird issues, too.
there was a discussion about that, but, so, I mean, all these are valid points. It's a policy debate for the council, and
The current ordinance, I don't know if did anyone look at it? I know you did, Rhonda, obviously.
Yes.
It says it's unlawful for any person to harbor more pets than can be reasonably maintained
Yep.
in a healthful and sanitary conditions. Oh, you got it up here?
And then you
Oh,
can see
okay.
the changes that were added.
Okay.
yeah, it's in the.
Or create other condition of nuisance, I don't know. I'm just nervous about putting a number on it because well, how many situations have we had?
Too many.
I think 3 in the last 2 years at least.
3.
But, the other thing to consider is a lot of those animals had to be put down.
Yep. Yep. And you see these kinds of things on the news all the time, right? Where you find a house where there's 60 cats living in it and they're inbred, and it's not a good
Yeah, no.
situation, obviously.
Do we have any idea of how other communities handle this?
Yeah, we looked at a lot of ordinances out there for different cities when we were putting this together. And a lot of communities have 3 or 4,
Wow.
and some have none. So
Right.
it really is just
Mixed bag,
personal
kind of.
preference in
Yeah.
a town or a community.
Well, I think it's a good time to be able to chew on this because this is,
Well, the big thing is people is emotional about their pets. And there are situations where people get into that, they may have 6 animals and there's puppies that come along, knock land, and they're not wanting to get rid of the puppies, so it could blow up quick and get out of control. But
I totally get what's trying to be accomplished, Rhonda. I just want to do it so it doesn't.
No, I get it, but listen.
It doesn't impact the good people. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
And I've gone back and forth on this myself, and the group that we worked with went back and forth on it, and we decided to leave it out because we couldn't come to a conclusion.
Okay.
It's been suggested it come up again, and that's why.
Pat, is there something that would maybe be helpful without an exact number?
Well, Bill just mentioned one idea. The council could enact an ordinance that says more than 6 pets requires notification and an inspection. Because it could be that somebody's just an enthusiastic pet owner, or they live on the edge of town.
and then that's an
And then all that
invasion of
does is all you do is look for unsanitary or unsafe conditions, and if there aren't any, you say, go for it. That's another way to handle it. Which is sort of that way, you're not telling people they can't have more than 6 pets. And by the way, this doesn't say that if you already have more than 6 pets, you can't keep them. It just says because you're grandfathered in, but.
You're grandfathered, which how do you verify that? I
Yeah, it's
coulda
difficult.
Got my rabbit
Right.
whenever.
But just one.
Just one.
What was the process that we used when we were doing the urban chickens and all that stuff? Because there's a number on those.
6?
Yeah, it was 60.
So-
Yeah.
I guess,
Those were just a flat number, and then they have
Yeah.
to have a
Yeah.
house for them.
Yeah.
right,
But
right.
other things, like when you're housing a dog outside or an animal outside, there has to be like so many square feet per animal. So, I mean,
Sure.
we could try something like that.
Well,
You could have 100 Chihuahuas and 3 St. Bernards, you know, I mean,
True.
And I received a text during this from somebody that might be in the crowd. But one of the things that this person recommended, maybe we use the word domesticated, because then I know a lot of families, because we are in the fields
Yeah.
as a community, you know, it's, the
Yeah.
fields butt up to our houses. And there's a lot of cats that we know that we're trying to tackle as well.
Yeah, yeah.
But maybe if we use the word domesticated, then that doesn't adhere to those folks that might be having 12 cats that are running around our yards, taking care of mice and all that. So it would be more like, as you're saying, Councilmember Kearns, in the home, domesticated, you know, trying to keep that level down, especially if you're in a 900 square foot
Yeah.
home. Like we've had a case before where you got, 18 dogs that are inside there. Or we had six dogs that was too much that were big dogs, so.
Can we, well, it's obviously the council's desire. I think I got to think on this a little bit.
it's a tough call, I
Yeah.
get it.
Well, that's why we're at the committee though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I might suggest that we take it back to committee and work some of these issues and see if we can come up with some
Yeah,
alternatives.
I'd like to brainstorm
Yeah,
with you a
let's
little
do that.
bit.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So I'm getting no action at this at the moment, and then we'll bring it back to a committee of the whole. Do we want to?
Put a date.
Do you want to set a date? Do you want to bring it back the next meeting, or do we want to wait like the first meeting in March? What do
We
we?
just want to bring it back when it's ready.
Or bring it back when it's ready? Or yeah.
Yeah, because we'll get right on it.
Okay.
Well, yeah, we'll bring it
All
back
right. So if it's
on
next meeting, it is. If it's not, then we'll move it forward from there. Okay.
Okay.
All right. That was 2D. 2C. You ready now?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right.
Thank you, Councilmember Kearns, for warming everybody up for me. This is to discuss the purposes and our updates of Chapter 159 zoning regulations to prohibit certain temporary dwellings, which would be considered kind of motorhomes and tents and yards. In the recent history, we have had situations in the city that have popped up where residents have wanted people to work in their homes, so they set up a tent in the backyard and they live there several months, changing residents in the tent because they don't want them inside their homes. And that does create conditions that are unsanitary and electrical issues. And it also creates an environment that you have different types of people walking in and out of your neighborhood all the time, days and night. So it was brought up that we take a look at this, and we did, and we made, you have that up there, right, Matt?
Yep, sir.
Brought up this code, and working with our legal team and our enforcement team, as well as taking it to the Planning Commission and the Neighborhood Improvement Committee for suggestions and any changes. Ironically enough, we pulled out several different types throughout the state of Iowa and beyond to look at, and just about in every case we looked at, they were much stricter. We came, and I will say this, we came in kind of soft. When we took it to the different boards, they actually thought we were kind of soft, but in each case, the boards voted unanimous to pass this through for us to approve today, and I'll leave it at that. Any comments? And
You'd like to say something?
I would put it out there to
Sure.
our committee's members that are out there that would like to make a statement.
Hi, Dennis Lauver. There are three of us here that were in the Neighborhood Improvement Committee. I'm the one who spoke at the previous meeting, and I'm pleased to see a couple of the suggestions that were made in my presentation incorporated into the document there, especially the language that a second ago Matt had highlighted in purple or blue or whatever color that is, right there, purple. But excellent, yes, about incorporating some of that in, and that, thank you. We agree with the comments and the direction you've headed here. And again, the Neighborhood Committee, Improvement Committee, you were at one of the meetings, and you were at one of the meetings too, and Rhonda attends and occasionally. And anyway, good, but thank you to everybody. And the committee was complete agreement with the what's in front of you reflects the changes that were suggested when I made those comments, and thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dennis.
I would just add that under the current, we don't have a code for anything of this nature, and this is why this was brought forward to put into code. So,
No, this,
our law enforcement have no, or any in code enforcement people have no ability to enforce tents or motorhomes. Now, you see we put on there that we do have the ability to extend. We understand where in-laws, outlaws, friends, neighbors want to come and visit at a house for a while, and so they're going to plug in. And the biggest thing there is to make sure that the conditions remain sanitary and
So would the city would have to come inspect?
it's take a verbal look.
Yeah.
So it's not, it's
Visual.
an inspection to make sure, one, that their equipment is legal for electricity, yes. And two, that you have a septic system that doesn't pour out into the yard.
Uh-huh, okay.
So, and those are the conditions that currently have been breached in the past.
Okay.
Hi, Sierra Peterson, Chair of the Neighborhood Improvement Committee. This was brought to us a couple weeks back. It's a double-edged sword. It really is. I understand the point of having a camper or a motorhome, a family coming, the conflict that it's going to have with the inspection coming in. Now, I can tell you that some of the houses that you guys all just seen on that screen on the demolition list started with these two problems.
Yeah.
Started with these tents in the backyard, started with these campers. I know a personal, and some of you already know, Cody and I spoke earlier about it. I could give you personal examples where an ordinance like this or this amendment would have saved us $20,000, $25,000, $40,000 just by having something as simple as this in there. Now, at this point, do I think it's going to be gung-ho, we're going to have a ton of complaints? No, I don't. But I do believe that this is a good start for a tracking system to we can see where this is going to develop, because we have to start somewhere to know what we can do. I mean, neighbors of these situations are terrified at this point.
Yeah.
They don't want to walk their dogs because of some of it. They don't want to go outside and take their trash out because of some of the things that are happening from these locations. So I understand that there is pros and cons to it, but we got to start somewhere to fix the problem, because we're only going to get more people. We're only going to keep growing on both ends, positive and negative, so got to start there.
Which is why we came in light on the ordinance.
So
In my opinion, there are certain things that are light. There was a motorhome in town that bounced every 11 days.
it was at the Y. There was one at the Y.
It was at the
everywhere.
north end, it was on 13th Avenue South, it went
Scott
to
was
the
scared
city
of
park,
it.
it went to
I
the
was
Y.
not scared of it.
And it's
Yes,
the
you
same
were.
home where there's a situation just recently in town where there was multiple tents on one property, to where one tent was the kitchen, hooked up to an electrical cord or an extension cord. It had
I think
a
that was
hot
the Boy
plate, it had a
Scouts.
microwave, and then the other tent was the sleeping quarters where they had space heaters hooked up to electrical cords. Imagine if one of them were to fall over. Then we have our fire department going out there. We have to hire more of them because we have to deal with how many of these are coming, and it's going to become a growing problem. There's ways to start. There's ways. The 10-day rule to me is kind of lax, but we all know how I feel about that.
Well, I think the reason the 10-day rule was in there is we definitely did not want to keep people from visiting from out of town. If they're driving across the country, they want to stay
Well,
with somebody. Or if, somebody needs to live in a mobile home because they're taking care of their parents temporarily. You wanted to have the 60-day, you could come in and say, hey, I see what your situation is. That's why it was written that way. It was designed really to address two issues. One's the Cousin Eddie scenario,
Yeah.
where somebody's, emptying a chemical toilet into our sewer system, that kind of thing. The other one was the tent guy. We had a tent guy in Burlington that my firm had to deal with, where the guy literally pitched a tent downtown. He owned a piece of property downtown that didn't have a structure on it, and he was just camping downtown, like right next to these business establishments. And he was violating the zoning, so that's why this is more or less a zoning question, and that's why it's where it's at in our code in Chapter 159, to try to beef up the zoning code. That's in the general provisions of the zoning code.
So you don't have any concerns that, I get we've got to do something like this with the problem issues. You don't think this will negatively impact good people?
No.
It could. I mean, the idea of the way it's written is to try to avoid that, to make sure the good people can do whatever they want.
So 60 days and that's the end of the story, right?
Well, that was just a suggestion. I'll take full responsibility for that. When the staff comes in, the plan commission comes in, and neighborhood,
It says you
improvement
have
committee come forward and they say, hey, can you help us draft something? And they don't give me any guidance, I just throw something in.
Yeah.
So it's definitely not there to be ironclad, or that's what everybody wanted. It's just what Pat O'Connell wrote because he didn't know what else to do.
I like it. Yeah.
It seemed reasonable when I was writing it, but
it's only with a hardship. So,
meaning like your grandmother's in the hospital. And
family visiting wouldn't be an argument for a hardship, right?
Not for 60 days.
well,
that's terrible.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
So maybe
we just
where the clear hardship is present to an extended stay. Maybe
No.
it's just a verbiage issue.
No, I honestly, I don't like the 60 days, and I'm going to tell you why. Because we will kick somebody out of their home in 30 days. And I don't think that you're ever going to come across a hardship where you got to pitch a tent for 60 days and somebody.
No, I'm not referring to a tent. I'm more referring to like an RV or something. You know,
That RV better
what
be
if
moving
you,
to get-
what
to
if
get
you,
down to the campground to empty it
you know,
then.
I know people that like live in RV. They go down south in the summer. Maybe they come back and stay at their kid's house in their RV, or go down in the winter, come back in the summer, and they're here for 3 months. They can no longer do that.
Go get a permit, pay money, get a permit.
For what?
Inspect, make sure that you got your stuff plugged in.
But the way this reads, you couldn't do that.
Right,
Verbiage issue.
Yeah.
We have a campground for that.
Councilmember Shemmers, you had something.
Well,
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, now, having been in an enforcement area in my past, you're going to know in 60 days if somebody's going to be there legitimately, or if they're there to camp to rip off the neighborhood and
Yeah.
bring the neighborhood down. If you don't know in 60 days, they're not going to do it.
You're gonna know
So,
in 10 days.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
Yes.
the
Now-
good person couldn't do it, right?
why not?
Because of the way this is written.
Every law enforcement person in this country has discretion, okay?
No, but the ordinance is the ordinance.
And you're going to know in the first
we're gonna-
10 days whether it's going to be a,
we don't have the option of enforcing the ordinance or not. The
Okay.
ordinance is the ordinance. Am I correct?
so what are the amount of days you'd like to see on there?
Well, I don't know. I'm just discussing that. I thought that's what the cow was for.
I'm asking you a question.
Okay.
Was the sheet of paper I handed you at the end of the planning commission meeting, was that given to Pat?
No. Just give it to the-
I'd suggest that you do that because that was where the committee's thinking that wrestled through
I
exactly
shredded that
the-
one.
Huh?
Yeah, I shredded that one.
We went right through, we had discussed these same issues and been over that, and that's, I handed that to you with the request and suggestion you handed to Patrick, and we'd already been through these discussions. I think there was a path forward. It was in the document I gave you, so I would encourage you to give that to him, or do I need to resend it to you?
Well, you never sent it.
Do I need to send it to you?
You handed it to me.
Right, do I need to send it
That'd
to
be
you now? Or
great.
Do you have, what did you guys come up with? Do you remember?
It's back there on my iPad, I'd have to walk back there and
Alright.
get it, so, and I want to talk on 2 other items, so I'll email it to you and copy Patrick on it. But, yeah, Cody, we'd gone through some of that to find the right
God, I'd love to
place
see it.
that's
Yeah.
there in the balance.
Well, I'm wondering if there's certain areas of town where this doesn't apply as much,
No.
based on zoning.
No.
No, that's not true, Dennis, because.
Well, within,
you know-
if you're camping, the comments went into detail about
Yeah.
if you're accessing public property, i.e. Riverview Park.
Yeah.
And just because, gee, I'm using the public toilet over there, well, no, because you weren't registered to use the park over there. You can't park behind, across the street from Wendy's.
Yep.
And I'm using the public toilet over there by the campground. No, because you're not at the campground.
Is that what you're talking about here, the need for restrooms on private property that meet city guidelines and restrooms on city property would not qualify?
That was part of the intent of that, to make sure that, oh, yeah, I'm just using the garage as my toilet. No.
Yeah. And then there must be written consent by the property owner.
Correct.
What do you mean?
To let them stay there. You don't want me to
So again, we're talking about like people I mean, people can't just come on your property without your permission and pop a tent.
Yep.
We have a lot of
course
property owners that are out
So,
of town.
so that's the point of, actually, I think to his point, it gives an extra leverage to be able to say, you're not supposed to be here.
Yeah.
You don't have the written permission of the property owner to be on private property that you are not owning. We need it in writing, and if they can't obtain it, then that becomes grounds to say, bye.
Well, yeah, I understand what you're saying. Okay.
You know,
So just as a little context, so in the other city where we had to enforce this, we didn't have a provision like this. The court still upheld it because it was a violation of the zoning code anyway. So what this does is this makes it more clear that it violates the zoning. You can't go out to M3 either, heavy industrial, and just camp and pitch a tent there either.
Well, where can I pitch a
So-
tent, Pat?
Well, in the campground,
No, you can't.
Can I pitch a tent
there.
at my
you can
house?
pitch it in a campground if that's what's permitted in the campground.
Okay.
Right. Approved campgrounds, if we have any, where tenting is allowed, or,
And if there's access to a public toilet, or a toilet.
right, which there should be in a public campground.
Yep.
But, so that was the intent. So in the other case, it was in C1, it was in Commercial 1 where the guy was camping, and the court just said, the zoning code says all structures in C1 have to be this, and it
Yeah.
doesn't meet that. So theoretically, this would still be enforceable, even if we didn't have this provision. Theoretically, we could say, well, campers you can't just live in a camper here all year round or
Yeah.
extended
Well,
periods
and
of time.
I'm not saying that's
So what
wrong,
this is
and-
doing is it's just
and I
making
talked
it more
about
specific and making it easier for people to
I
understand.
just do not like ordinances and laws that are in place for a couple bad eggs and penalize good people. I don't like that.
Cody, I think we have more bad eggs in Clinton than you're thinking we
That's
have.
fine, and we can
think we
deal
do.
with those. But I don't have the exact answer. I'm waiting for Dennis because he's got it. But do you understand what my position is?
the one thing about the 60 days, why can't you put a verbiage in there saying that it can be appealed, or they can apply for an exception to a rule if something necessary. Like, you know, they got a doctor that says this person needs to be here to help take care of this person while they convalesce.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I don't think it necessarily has to be a hardship either, Ron, because if you got family coming back and you live out on a half-acre lot and you don't have any neighbors really close and they come back for 3 months, I don't think I should have to go beg the city for permission, especially when I'm not causing an issue. Now, I think this needs to come into play when an issue arises, and then the staff can use the ordinance. But it doesn't need to apply to non-issue people.
right.
I would
Yeah.
say that we looked at Burlington's code, we looked at Marshalltown, Story City, and a couple, Davenport and a couple other communities across the state of Iowa to see their language. There were 5 key points in the document. Restrooms that meet City of Clinton code guidelines must be present and accessible to any campers that are on private property.
Okay.
Restrooms at city-owned parks do not qualify for use by campers on private property.
Okay.
2, there should be a number of days limit for use of camping on private property. For
Okay.
example, some towns limit that to 5 days in any 30-day period. Camping for more than 5 days but less than X can be allowed if it's occurring on property owned by the camper. So the point was, and then 3, the recommendation of the committee was to avoid a consecutive days as measurement. This avoids the issue, you know, if the rule is you can't stay there for 6 days at the most you can stay. Well, to avoid the issue of, well, I'm here for 5 days, then I move someplace else for 5, and then there, and then I come back.
Yeah, that's the 6 months.
Avoiding the issue of someone staying in location A for a limited number of days, moving to B, use the standard of X, whatever X, within a 30-day time period or 60-day time period. but some sort of a measurement like that is appropriate and makes sense. 4, there must be written consent by the private property owner. 5, camping's not allowed on public property except for at the specific area parks designated for camping. You can't put,
Yep,
you know,
that
and
makes
again, it
sense.
was designated for camping during Ragbri. Yeah, you could park there at the band shell and camp there, but not normally. No, and that's not designated for tent camping.
We would like to have a nice Boy Scout camping tent area someday. It could be a great Eagle Scout project.
Up at Eagle Point, yeah.
That's correct. That would be a great
That
Eagle
would be
Scout
awesome
project.
up there, yeah.
There's a couple Eagle Scouts that would help with your service project too. So,
Kind of listening to everybody's thoughts. I think maybe that word hardship is the word that's hung up for everybody. Maybe there's even a different word in there.
In the 60 days.
And-
And if it's a non-issue, I don't understand why the city has to be involved.
I look at it as, you know, neighborhood improvement, the planning commission, they put it forward. They're the citizen groups that wanted this. Maybe we give it a shot. That's my shot. That's my thought.
Either way, it all goes back to somebody's gonna have to call and complain on it.
True.
The fire department shows up because they melted the garage because they put a plug in that.
I mean,
Which is happening.
Because most of this stuff happens with complaints.
Tammy's not here, but those are the things she's finding when she's already being called out on those calls right now for nuisances and things like that.
Yeah.
So,
as of right now, the only thing that we really have that we can help with this issue, other than something like this, is when the trash piles up for how long. And then it takes so many times of having that become a nuisance and having
Yeah.
us go
It's
out there
6:20,
clean it up and
Daniel.
whatnot, that's costing us stuff. That's really the only way that we're able to stop this at this point.
I just emailed the text to that note to Lisa. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks, Dennis.
Okay. Is there any other discussion?
We have a really nice campground for somebody that's coming home for the season, so if they want to stay in their kid's
Yeah.
driveway for 30 days, I'd be hard-pressed to find that person, but
I do think the tent camping option, we don't have one, so maybe we should look into that a little further too.
Yep.
I mean, because then you have a designated location where tent camping is allowed, and then that,
We started, and this is
Someone
kind of
wants
like
to
a bad
camp there, they can.
Parks and Rec episode, but Josh started this, and when they looked at Eagle Point Park, it literally came upon an Indian burial ground.
Oh,
It's like the first episode ever of Parks and Rec, but yeah.
yeah.
so it'd be scary camping.
Yeah,
tent
so,
camping.
all right, any other discussion, or do we have any motions on this? Any amendments, changes, anything? Councilmember Witt, go ahead.
Well, I'd just like to say, it sounds like you just want to be proactive instead of reactive to a situation that has just spun out of control. You know, and so by having it in place, it gives a little teeth to, let's address this because it's an ordinance and now it's, you know, spun out of control, kind of like the dog situation. It's like, okay.
I'm familiar with 3 of these situations, and I haven't even talked to Sierra about them.
Right,
So
and I know
I'm-
personally of 2.
I would vote to move it forward.
So, anyway, it
Is
seems
that a
like you
motion?
just want to be
I would make a
proactive
motion
so that
to
we
move
don't
it
end
forward,
up.
but potentially amend the 60 days,
What are you thinking?
30.
I can't move this forward with 60, so
What are you thinking?
I think that I would like a little more leeway where issue situations, you know, it doesn't need, you know, Tammy can say, oh, well, nobody cares, it's here. It doesn't, you
Everything
know,
meets-
they can stay for the 3 months, it's fine.
Yep.
You know, and I don't mind making sure they're not dumping their waste on the ground.
When you know this, it's really black and white when you look at what
Yeah.
happens, because like the RV they were talking about before,
Yeah.
I mean, it was
well,
like
I know
legs.
what the problems you're talking about. I mean, that RV that was all over town, it was I mean, I was
there's
scared
two
to walk
different
by it
ones.
because I,
One
you
with
know,
a
I
trailer,
didn't
one
know what was
without.
going on in
He
there.
lived in my neighborhood.
But
for
they
about
were
6
camping
months, so
out
I get
on
it.
city property, so there is a little difference,
They
you
were on
know.
private property also.
Yeah, so they were bouncing
They're
all
moving,
over. But they would go from parking lot to parking lot to parking lot.
Yep.
And that's an
And you
issue,
can do
right?
that. And you, right now, you
Yes.
can do that without,
Yep. Yep.
Well,
and Walmart allows you.
so we,
Oh, true. Me too.
Yep. For X amount, well, I don't know if they ever check how long.
I would put this up there too.
We don't have a
If
second yet
if
for
this is
conversation.
if this is pushed through as normal, or as it not as normal as
Your
it's
Honor-
said here.
Your Honor,
Okay.
we don't have a second on this to even discuss it at this point. So if we're not going to get a second, it's going to die at the table, I guess is my contention. If we're
Well,
gonna
we can discuss at the cow.
But we already have a second on the table.
So there's a motion on the table, and Bill's point of order is that there should be a second before,
More discussion ensues?
she's made a motion to move it forward to the, okay, so now there's a motion and a second. We can
Okay.
discuss whether to move it forward and whether any amendments need to be made to it.
We're going to be technical, I'll be technical.
So we have the motion and the second, so can I make one other suggestion? Possibly, we take the hardship and the 60 days out, it just goes to the neighborhood improvement, or the building and neighborhood services to determine whether they are worthy, if that's the right word, to stay in the driveway for another, whatever length of time.
Or just maybe we just use,
they're asked
they can
for.
receive the exemption,
Yeah.
right? And then that exemption can be granted and there's not has to be
It
dates.
doesn't have to be a hardship. It could be,
Yeah.
I came back from Florida.
Like Councilman Schumer said, it could be they're coming up and they're going to stay in that RV as they care for some of their family members.
Or like their house is getting remodeled, they're living in their RV
Yep.
for 3 months.
Yeah, because if we take that 60 days out, we might be giving them a suggestion that's way more than they're thinking
Sure.
they might.
Yeah, and that may not be appropriate. There may be a situation where it's like, no, this can't.
Yeah.
Sierra filled me in on a lot of situations, so.
Very good.
er,
They're just like that.
Whatever you want to go.
Drive down the alleys and you'll see them.
And we do have a wonderful RV campground for all those
Yes,
folks that
we
like to
do.
go down there and use it.
But it's always full.
No.
Need to expand.
Yep.
Sure what our suggestions are.
So how we can,
Yep.
we're just gonna take the 60 days out, have them report the building and neighborhood services?
Yeah, and then between now and, I would say February 22nd, you guys can also chew on this a little bit more and see if that fits, and you guys are all comfortable with that. That way, when we come back, and if you want to, you guys can have the option to bring it back to the cow again, or
Okay, cool.
you could motion it forward with the motion to send it to the council meeting, but it gives you 2 more weeks to have that discussion if you want.
I think we can probably move it forward and make the modifications in the next 2 weeks.
Sounds good.
I think we can just take out a couple of words.
Okay, good. I didn't want to say no again.
You're getting difficult.
So I would suggest if you're going to take the 60 days out, just have it say, a period not to exceed 10 days, provided fire and health and safety issues are not implicated, and then just get rid of the whole thing. Because what you're envisioning and what, we're talking about here is somebody wants to care for a parent. I mean, you're plugged into the electrical system and there's no those campers are designed, especially the modern ones, are designed to be plugged in for long periods of time. And if code staff doesn't have any reason to think there's health and safety problems, then they can grant the extension.
And I'm guessing a lot of our older homes in town probably couldn't even handle the air conditioning in water.
Yeah, that's true.
And this would not go, the way I read it, it would not go to, I'm going to pitch a tent in my mother's front yard.
Yeah, that wouldn't.
That is-
I mean, that's a whole. The tent thing, I completely understand.
Okay, well, let's work on verbiage then.
Cool.
So
Yeah.
we have a motion and a second to move this forward. Anything else? Can we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Shemmers. Whip.
Yes.
Seeley.
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Obrin. Yes. Mussman.
Yes.
Kearns.
Yes.
Okay, going to 2A. John, are you online?
I am, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep, thank you for holding steady for us.
Hey,
But-
John, we'd just like to put a public announcement out, though, is that normally we don't talk about tents and campers and all that as we start to gear up for retail and bringing in new businesses. So, we would like to turn this over to you and just kind of give a brief. I know we have your slides and they've seen them, but if you could kind of just give a one-on-one with the council, brief overview of retail strategies and the intent working with the city of Clinton to be awesome.
Sure. Can I go through the presentation?
Okay. I got to smile. No, I'm kidding you. Hold on. I just want to see it. I wanted to make you stress a little bit. Here we go. Hold on a sec. Here we go.
I do this for cities and counties all across
Gotcha.
America.
The floor is yours, good sir.
Okay, thank you. So, my name's John, so I appreciate you all having me here today. I work for Retail Strategies. We're a consulting firm for retail, for small local city county governments. And just a little background, we were a commercial real estate firm. Commercial real estate firm has been around since about 2005. Government consulting part started about 2011. We have over 150 clients, coast to coast, 30 licensed real estate professionals on staff. We're members of many, associations from ICMA, IEBC, Retail Live, ICSC. In fact, our president just got elected to the Board of Trustees for ICSC and is serving that term now. We maintain a 5-to-1 client-staff ratio, so we keep a really, really small, kind of focused approach to our clients here. So what we do is we exist to fill a gap, a disconnect we found between communities and retailers. We found that from being a commercial real estate firm first, that sometimes you have people, especially in small towns. I mean, it's easier for larger towns, but smaller towns like Clinton, to be able to call on these people and say, hey, we don't have a, we don't have, say this burger joint here. Our people would like to have it. What do you think about it? And we find out most of the time, if you have an independent film professional or city managers, they have a lot more to do than this. So we kind of come and fill that gap. Scroll that down like page 3. There we go. Perfect. So this is perhaps an illustration of the things you need. We exist to drive tax revenue and jobs, and oftentimes quality of life with that. At the expense of a lot of these other things. We scroll to the next one. Great. So our process has three prongs. First of all, the data. So that's discover. We are doing an exhaustive amount of data work. We pay for about $250,000 worth of data subscriptions a year from all kinds of different places. We use the same data that Publix uses and Best Buy uses when they plan stores to do traffic count research. We're trying to paint the best picture of your demographics, traffic counts, and that we can to present to these retailers. We're doing a peer analysis. We're trying to find communities that are similar to yours, and saying, hey, listen, this market has this burger store. Why not Clinton? Next one. So this is an example of the data here. This is a mobile data collection reel. This is actually did this for Clinton. You can see as the things are shaded, these are people that actually travel from these other areas to Clinton to do business, and that actually comes off of mobile data on people's cell phones. Because of this, we could find that we can demonstrate that about 68. The population of your trade area exceeds 68,000 people. So, if you had somebody looking at a rep looking to place a new store, they might Google you and see that your population is 24,469. That's true, but as we like to say, consumers aren't always our constituents. There are people from across the river in a different state. There are counties, other cities traveling all the time. So we can demonstrate that your trade area population is in excess of 68,000. That's a good stat. What we would bring to these people, to retailers. Here's an example of peer analysis. This is not live like the other one was, but this is a peer analysis we ran for a different clients. Limited service restaurants, full service restaurants, quick service, looking at the differences, trying to find out what's different from your community to other communities that are like yours. So the other part of this is, the downtown. We talked about this. You all have such a great, and I'm thinking of that patch, those true one-way streets with all the city-owned land in the middle. That's just a huge, Liberty Square. plus, you know, when people are looking at those things and your downtown and Riverboat and the other things down there. So, you know, the downtown part of it is really, society is really trying to capitalize on what you already have there. You know, downtown, we're talking about the design of the market. You know, we're doing a market analysis of the existing downtown businesses, restaurants, is there a coffee shop? You know, what does the streetscape like, the walkability? You know, we're basically anything we can do to dial in the specifics of what makes your downtown unique and then coming up with a plan and using it to your advantage. And then another part of that is strategic visioning. It's meeting with council members, meeting with the public, you know, finding out what they want in the downtown. A lot of times, I think we find that what people think that they want isn't necessarily what the data suggests that they want. But just really trying to get an idea of what people want to see in their downtown so we can move on from there. Real estate, you know, this is the part that we really find is different. It is really the most important part that's really kind of most neglected of normal real estate. You know, when we come to our clients, when we sign your client, we actually come to the market. We have somebody that drives, and we have somebody that sits in the front seat with a laptop pointing out locations that are for sale, that are not for sale. Sometimes there are highest and best use opportunities that can be changed to something better. You know, we're trying to find the real estate because, you know, we don't want to just go to these people and to the retailers and say, hey, we think you should come to Clinton. We want to go to the retailers and say, hey, we think you should come to Clinton. We've got a pad site that's a half an acre. We have somebody willing to sell. We know the person that will do it, and we have a developer that will develop it. We want to make it as easy as possible. This is the same thing, you know, taking inventory of businesses and property that's available. You know, that's a huge part of it, and so we can go to many different people at once and say, listen, let's talk about what we can do to place the store here because we already have these existing plots. Walkability, I ran this on the walkability of downtown. 65 is not bad for the town that big, but it can only get better. Like I said, we talked at length about the downtown and Riverboat, the park and stuff like that. I think there's plenty we can do to cash in on that. Tools and deliverables, this is just extra stuff that we're talking about. You know, if you all, you know, hypothetically, if you had an industrial project, you had something, a residential project, and they wanted to, you know, some data, population data, or, you know, something like that, we'll pull for you. We're happy to do it. No charge, nothing about that. Conference advocacy is very important. We go to ICSC in May every year in Las Vegas, and we sit down with hundreds of different retailers. We bring our whole company out there. We're sitting down with them and bringing them our clients and plots and saying, all right, let's talk about these 5 locations or these things. Maintaining those relationships, you know, that's very important in commercial real estate. So we try to do our best to bring our clients from those people. This is just really the end of it, is connecting local brokers with community leaders, with retailers, with developers, with property owners, maintain those collections. I get to these points every time. This is really our third step. First step's data, second step real estate analysis, third step is just labor. I'd love, you know, I think people sometimes think that we have this patented process that just makes this work. We don't. It's just a lot of labor. Like I said, we keep a 5-to-1 client staff ratio. We have a dedicated portfolio director and a retail recruiter for every client. And they just get to work going after it. And if we want to know, if we hear a no, we want to know why it's a no. I'll give you an example of we have a town in Mississippi, a client that wanted all they wanted was a Krispy Kreme, and they could never figure out why. Long story short, we kept calling Krispy Kreme and saying why, and they said, all we have here is a no. All we have here is no. I don't know why it's no. We kept saying, please find out why. Well, they found out that there was an ordinance from the 50s that outlawed neon signs. Krispy Kreme will not build without that trademark hot donut sign. And back to the council and said, hey guys, all you got to do is make this, is take away the ordinance. And it did, and they built Krispy Kreme. So we learned as much from the no's as we do the yeses many times to try to get there in the future and keep going. So recap, we're multiplying and enhancing your staff. We're becoming, we've essentially become a part of your economic development staff. We are in constant communication. This is the type of thing where, you hire us and we go away for a year and then come back in a year. We're visiting the market. We're in very regular communication, talking about the yeses and the nos and the whys and the understanding what's going on with your existing businesses and what comes next. We're an investment. I think that's really important to know. We want to grow tax revenue. So if we can grow tax revenue increase, then this investment will pay dividends. That's it. Any questions?
I think one of the, yep. So we'll have some questions. But one of the things too is like we talked about, because we're going to get ready to do an updated housing study. We didn't really hit it in our meeting with you, but this will be another place where you can grab some data for that, because it's a lot of data that goes in housing study. But Councilmember Seeley, I think, had some stuff to shoot at you, John.
Sure.
So it's a 3-year process?
Roger that.
3-year. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Yes,
3.
sir, I can. Yeah, it's a 3-year process.
Okay.
If we were to come there tomorrow and break ground on the Dunkin' Donuts, which is about the easiest thing to get, it would take about 10, 11 months. So, to get the things we want to get, we want to be realistic about that.
Okay.
It would take, 3 years to get, would be an average amount for a deal to get done.
So,
finding the site, buildings.
yeah, on a 3-year period, we're talking, you're at, first, have you worked with any cities in Iowa?
Yeah, Dubuque.
We have. We've worked with Dubuque.
So how many retailers did you land for Dubuque?
14.
Yep.
14. I like it. Okay.
And I think you guys started in December of 14, and they started in 2014, and by 2018 they had 14 that they landed.
Okay. Very good. So
From his
Dubuque's, I mean, you're already ahead of the game then a little bit. So 14, is that abnormal, or would that be typical for a city that size?
It's more than normal.
Okay. What might we expect? So I need to set my expectations for this.
So, we always, usually the question is, how many wins can you guarantee?
Well, I was going to ask guaranteed.
Said that, we guarantee anything 100%. I think for a city this size, in 3 years, I think you can expect that you get 4 or 5.
Okay.
Would be a low amount of something we would hope for. I think that it actually makes it a little easier because you have the casino.
Yeah.
So you're getting tourism dollars, more than a normal amount. And I think the thing that excites me the most about this market in particular is the casino and the city-owned land.
Mm-hmm.
So having good land is the real estate really makes it. And if you have the city-owned land and the city is willing to sell and get developed the way you want it, then that just puts you so far ahead of the curve.
And John, tell them the commission you get on when you do a real estate piece.
We take 100%, honestly.
Zero commission.
We don't take any commission from the real estate deal.
So we've got a broker sitting here, and he is frowning something furious. I'm just kidding. He's not. He's not.
We don't take any real estate commissions.
Perfect.
We work for the city. We want to remain objective to our client. So we are doing what's best for the city 10 times out of 10. And the reason for that is it would be easy for us to go build a bank or dialysis clinic in a great spot and take a commission, but that doesn't do anything for you tax-wise. So we want to build things that we want to do, what our clients want to see every time.
Okay. And then, is your fee ever tied to results?
No, we don't really do that because the reason is we want to make sure that we are doing, what's best all the time. So we've dabbled, we've tried that in the past.
Okay.
And we found out that it would be easy, a lot of times there's things, sign up with a results-based fee, and we could always just say, we're working on it, but they usually get something to start. The biggest problem with the results-based fee is if we don't do any work for you, if we sign you as a client with a results-based fee, and someone opens something completely unrelated to the work we do, then we get paid for it.
Yep. Okay. And one last question, since this is a 3-year deal, it starts off 65, 45, 45, correct?
Yes.
If at month 11, we are unsatisfied, are we obligated for 2 more?
No,
Okay. Thank you.
no, our main, we would hate that, obviously.
Yeah. No, I'm just making sure. I doubt that would be the
No, I know,
situation.
hey, I understand what I said this all the time, so it's a fair question. We ask for 3 years mainly because number one, it takes a good 3 years for to get an average real estate deal. Number two, it makes it a little easier to get through council. So, you vote on it, you get 3 years, 3 years in budget, and we don't have to worry about it for 3 years. We found out that as elections happen and stuff, it's a little bit difficult to get year 2 because we don't, if we don't have something built in year 1, it just makes it a little easier to pallet for year 2 and 3.
And you'll probably be working with local realtors and stuff like that, and lots of local people.
Yeah, so when we sign a client in about 90, we do 90 days of data work.
Yep.
We're doing all of the upfront stuff. 90 days in, we do what we call a boots on the ground tour. That's when we come, we want to meet, city administrator, anybody in economic development. We love to go meet any, local developers, any real estate agents that commercial real estate agents that are doing that work. We lean heavily on the council and the people that work for the government because we can never, pretend to know as much about Clinton as you do.
Yep.
So we need to know those types of things. A lot of times there's crazy situations where there's major landowners that will not sell.
Yep.
Or there's a landowner that's recently deceased and his children aren't interested in selling, but
Yep.
they want too much money. On the presentation right there, usually people say, hey, what kind of success do you have? I always put that slide in afterward if you see right behind you on it says Parable, Arkansas. We have a client, this is a real story of Parable, where they had this old funeral home was had a beautiful intersection of 2 main roads, and we went to the city, and when they hired us, this is a similar population to you, 28,000. When they hired us, they said, don't bother, we tried to get them to sell over and over and over again, and we went after it with the labor. That's what I'm talking about, is just the amount of labor going into it, and research, and came over and over and over again, we wore them down. We sold, we built a Starbucks and a Freddy's frozen ice, frozen custard right there in the place, and they relocated it. So, things like that, where we're talking about going in and wearing these things down, we need the city's cooperation. We need that local knowledge to really make that happen.
Awesome. Well, John, if the council moves this forward, I'd be excited to meet with you and talk about some stuff as well when you get here.
Great.
Any other discussion points from council or questions for John?
I'm excited to see it start.
Yeah.
Dennis, you had a comment or two?
Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank you for moving ahead on this subject. Just thinking back in the years, and Sharon and Dave would remember this. Pat was here in the room when between where I was primary lead or working with 1 or 2 other people, I've been involved in over 4 million square feet of retail development, whether it's Menards, Kohl's twice, Buffalo Wild Wings twice, TJ Maxx, Dick's, Hobby Lobby, Shoe Carnival, Menards, Home Depot, et cetera, and this is a good step to go, and I look forward to meeting John when he comes to town and go through those. I've met with John, he doesn't remember me, but I've met with him at ICSC.
Oh, cool.
And ironically enough, right after meeting with him, that's when I went over and met with Dunkin' Donuts, which he referenced, and talking with them, and they were pretty darn sure they wanted to come into town, and the guy was like, where in town do you think we ought to be? And I said, well, I'm going to put it down on a sheet of paper, and then you go first. And I wrote down right across the street from the bowling alley. And he pulled up, so I didn't know anything about I mean, he was right next door to Burger King and Taco Bell. So we had reached the same point with Dunkin' Donuts on site location and some of that sort of stuff. But yeah, Freddie's Shoe Sensation, Dylan Save-A-Lot, like I said, over 4 million square feet of retail development. Either it was the lead entity or working with one other person in 2 different states. So I look forward to this. This is a good step forward, and I expect to hear back from you on being heavily involved in the next step. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Council, do you have any other questions? Okay.
Well, with Dennis and Josh working on, or John,
Yep.
working on this, we're gonna have 28. We're gonna double Dubuque, I suspect.
Well, he sounds excited that we own a lot of land.
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems to be a big,
All right.
big plus.
I would entertain a motion from council.
I'll make a motion that we move it forward.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any last discussion on this proposal? All right. Can we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Shemmers. Whip.
Yes.
Seeley.
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Oberon.
Yes.
Mussman.
Yes.
Kearns.
Yes.
All right. Motion passes, John.
Thank you all so much. I'll be in touch about next steps. I appreciate it.
Thank you
Thanks,
for
John.
being
Thank you.
online. We appreciate it. Okay. Last item. Oh, Dennis again.
Mike Fry is going to move up here front also.
I like that everybody's leaving now that
Yeah, I see that.
the actual item came up.
They left.
I'm still here.
Sierra and Jessica are still here. Karen will probably leave too, so.
Everyone's back there.
Yeah, I see Karen's already folding up her stuff, going to leave. So what we wanted to do with the Lyons Business and Technology Park is to give you an update, especially knowing that a couple of you are new on the City Commission and a couple others haven't been on the City Commission for a long time. Wanted to be able to give you an update to that, so I'm hoping that Lisa can, or Matt, Matt can show that up on the screen a little bit better so we can see the whole. Thank you. All right.
That was a drone shot.
So here to give you an update. We've been doing this about once a year, so just a little bit of the history of Clinton Business Park Development Corporation. That's the entity that was incorporated back in 2002 as a 501c3. As part of the IDOT RISE grant that paid and helped with the cost of the Mill Creek Parkway, Clinton was challenged to create 500 new jobs. And a substantial those numbers of those positions that were created to meet the RISE grant were located within the park, and we'll hit that in the next slide. This is, the park has been a great example of the three-way that it takes to make stuff happen. You got to have the private sector involved, the nonprofits, and the public sector. It's not a public sector only or a private sector only, a nonprofit. The triangle working together. So working together, a bunch of volunteers organized a 501c3. If you go back to that slide, please. And thank you. And organized it with the idea of enticing business and capital investment. And as you'll see in another slide here, a key part of it was about a balanced approach back in 2002, the idea of a little bit different approach that was going to provide a little more balance to economic growth. Now, next slide. You can see the list of who was on the board of the Business Park Corporation. We appreciate the fact that Rhonda suffers through the minutia of the board meetings and attends as your ex officio council liaison. It's always nice when Scott or Matt participate in the meetings. Bob Holsinger is the chair, and again, Mike Fry, which I'll reference here in a little bit of detail and give Mike a chance to talk, is present and is a member of that board. Next slide. So part of where when it came time to finance the initial of that triangle, that public, private, and private, nonprofit, and public entity working as a team, there were a couple different buckets of money that were accessed in order to get the business park started. There was a $100,000 grant from the Clinton County Development Association. I remember working through the minutia, writing a grant to the Economic Development Administration Office in Denver. There was also not listed in here, frankly, it was an earmark from Congressman Nussel that was included. And then working with the city, using tax increment financing and setting up the park urban renewal area that you'll see on the next slide or on a future slide, money was used to help pay for storm, sanitary, sewer, water, land purchase, and the streets. So again, a great example of a bunch of different folks working together across sectors in order to make stuff happen. Next slide. In terms of economic impact, and again, these numbers are post-COVID numbers, but you can see that between Data Dimension, Winkle Park and Foster, Bridgeview, and First Wealth Financial, there's approximately 300 employees out there. You can see the numbers in terms of the annual estimated payroll. More importantly, you can see the multiplier effect of those dollars and what that has in terms of the total annual economic impact. You can see the property tax value, the certified indebtedness, the TIF tax to be apportioned in the next fiscal year. And you can see that actually the park employee numbers supported then a second RISE grant that helped pay with the extension of 19th Avenue North and where it becomes Northwest and extending between Main Avenue and Mill Creek Parkway. Next slide. There's the box, and it really extends all the way over to and includes the middle school. And then from that road up north there to Main Avenue. The business park there is in the upper right-hand corner of there. And then as you come back down, you can see the first phase of Westview Heights, the Catholic Church, Fairway, the church, Dollar General, Dollar Tree, et cetera, that are all included into that urban renewal tax increment financing district. Was there a question, Scott?
No.
Okay. Next slide.
He just wondered why you didn't do another development here when you were back in the chamber.
I'm prepared to talk to you about that when you call me, and we can do that. Okay?
It's 30 more days. You're 30 more days in the box now.
What? What?
30 more days, and then I can.
Well, you call me, and then we're ready to go on that. So the multi-phase plan that we had attracted a private investor who said, I'm going to step up and build 2 speculative buildings. That private investor is sitting right here. In a minute, I'll give him a chance to talk. But that plan for the future said we're going to put in redundant high-speed internet service, sidewalks. There is a lot that's available next to the first building, about a little bit over an acre that would work for retail. And then on the southwest corner of Mill Creek Parkway and 19th is a triangle of land that is about 5 acres, which I'm going to reference in another slide. So it's really and then, like I said earlier, that helped trigger and help justify to the state of Iowa to provide some additional dollars to help extend 19th Avenue North. So again, very much of a 3-party triangle, private sector, a nonprofit, and the public sector coming together. Next slide, please. So moving forward, there are conduits and vaults in ground to help support, again, that redundant fiber optics. Some prep work has been done. Dirt has been moved to provide some shovel-ready sites. And virtual spec buildings, we hired a firm that can put together a virtual speculative building that helps us with marketing, which I'll talk about here on the next slide. So marketing efforts, we work with a variety of site selectors. The purpose of that virtual building is to help them see and everybody say, oh, I can build you a building. Well, picture's worth 1,000 words. So help me understand what that could really look like. There are a couple, there's a list there of 6 different websites, and the top 2 are really the ones that are most often looked at by professional real estate folks that are doing site selection work. The third one is, frankly, and it's a friend of mine out of Kansas City that owns that one, but really that's one that the only people who really look at location 1 are Chamber of Commerce execs and people that work for economic development companies. The customer base doesn't really look at location 1. Our website, the Clinton Regional Development's website, the Quad City Chamber of Commerce website. there is some outbound marketing. We conducted a virtual tour with marketing staff of the Iowa Economic Development Authority. The mayor came over and briefly made an appearance online with the entire marketing staff from the Iowa Economic Development Authority. There is a site visit in early April by a couple of the leading people at the Iowa Economic Development Authority coming to town, and they have 2 items on their agenda while they're in town. And after I'm done with them at the first one, then we're going to drive over and we're going to walk through Spec Building 1, which you're about to see a picture of here in a little bit. So 3 near-term items to discuss. Building 1, Lametta Wind Drive, and the tax increment financing. So Building 1 is 18,060 square feet of flex space. Long time ago, Mike and I drove down to Des Moines, and you go on the north loop around Des Moines, and right where you turn off to go to Merle Hay Road in Johnston area, you see 3 buildings that are still there that are flex space. And the idea was that could be converted and finished off to an office space. That could be something that would work for light manufacturing, which fits and is zoned up in this area of town. And so with that building there, and to that point, 3 months ago, a local manufacturer toured that building twice and is kind of on hold, waiting for some follow-up contact to decide, is this really what we want to do in terms of with the idea of light manufacturing that would occur there. Last week, Mike and I met with somebody else at the building who would completely different, more of a, not a manufacturing, more of an office or a service business type of use. And frankly, for them, it's too small for that particular user. But working with it and trying to make sure we get the building out in front of folks. As you can see, all of the equipment and everything that was in there when it was the call center is now gone. And becomes a lot easier for a potential user to say, I can get it now. They see the building instead of seeing all of the stuff sitting in the building. Next slide. Lametta Wind Drive, which you covered during the council meeting. There is a couple things that we've talked about and at a previous meeting of the Business Park Board of Directors, and about really how to continue that. How do we help? It's something that's going to help everybody, and that helps the private sector, the public sector, and the nonprofit that's in charge of this. So toward that end, the next slide reviews a couple of the things that the board's thinking about as it relates to that $55,628 balance of funds that are there right now in the TIF. And so one thought was, what could we do to as we brainstorm and try to think what's the best use of that balance fee? One thought is, okay, what could we do with $55,000 to help with building number 1, to get that over the edge? So that manufacturer that says, maybe I'm interested in here, but I want to come in here, and I've been up here twice. Well, what can we do? Well, the whole point of a flex building is if you drive around the back of building 1, you can see that the way it was designed, there'll be some work to do, but not much, to convert those into some loading docks. But it's going to take some money to do that. Maybe that $55,000 helps toward that and pushes that over to the edge and said, oh, good, then that's not a problem. That's not an excuse or reason for that manufacturer here in the community to say no. That can help move them. Is there something that we could do with that money to help add value to that 5.25 acre, that triangle that I referenced earlier? So the board has, if you go back to the other, thank you. The board will be in touch with Jason Kraft and Matt to schedule a meeting to discuss. Now she is leaving, see? To schedule a meeting to talk about where Lametta Wind Drive fits in, and how, again, there's a way to create a win-win that involves the park, involves that land, adds value, makes it possibly easier with a Westview Heights Phase 2, et cetera, and create that three-way partnership that continues. Next slide, please. So thank you to everybody involved in that public-private and nonprofit team approach that is the key to making things happen here. And with that, I will let Mike come up here, and then we'll yield to you in the part that's highlighted in red.
It surprised me throwing me out here, but that's fine. I'd like to thank you for the years. We started the first building in 2007. That was building 1, and we followed it right up with 2008, and those were eventually worked out with Ashford. And since that time, we've got the first buildings become available. The second one was sold. And as Dennis alluded to, we have flex building capability in building 1, and it sits out there in a very prominent area. I think the development to date of the Lyons Business Park has been good, but I think there should be more efforts, and it sounds like you're moving in that direction. So I guess I would just like to thank you for your efforts in helping us down through the years. And Clinton is on the move, and I think there's a lot of opportunities out there in that business park for more buildings. But I would certainly be open to discuss it or show anyone anything further about building 1. Right now it is 18,000 plus square feet, and it's pretty wide open, and it can be modified for a lot of different uses, but it is a Class A office building. So I guess without any further ado, thank you very much for your time, and like I said, we'll be ready to answer any questions that might come about. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Council have any questions about the update?
And for the record, non-council member, is Allers and Cooney, for the record, Allers and Cooney talked to Nathan and Jenna. Basically, the two options that Dennis described here were both given a thumbs up as far as how to use tax increment finance and use those dollars. So it'd be great to look at that and see how you guys can come up with the use for that, because it does expire here shortly. So it's best to get that down to 0 so that we can actually start to have future tenants and other expansion out there.
Call me and we'll get it scheduled and go the next step. So please call me.
I'll find your number.
Thank you.
All right.
Do you have any other prospects on the horizon? Or
We've had a couple of folks to varying degrees look, but as you can imagine, the last couple of years have been a little bit of a challenge. But and again, part of that, though, Ron, goes back to and what the Iowa Economic Development Authority staff said. One of the things that works, I've sold a couple of houses there in town. I went out of Chicago. And so that idea of working in an office environment, they went out of the suburbs and being out, and hey, I could see I can work here in this sort of environment, and then that becomes very helpful with their question of a company's question of, is there labor? Can I find the quantity and quality of labor? Yes. So that's where simple little things like even the extension of the bike trails and providing the information that's there. I've got access to more detail or other detailed, in addition to what you just heard from John, with demographic information about communities, and provide some of that information back to folks. But there was a little bit of that, threw that for a curve. What we're seeing in other office parks run across the country is seeing where being hooked up to solar energy has a lot of appeal. And so we've had some discussions with a number of providers to say, what could you do maybe working here? Because all things being equal, not even just the dollars and cents aspect of it, but from just going back to their stockholders to say, and our building in 5 different states are all solar powered. Oh, good. I like that. And we're seeing that in other markets, similar size, similar demographics. Those kind of things are sometimes tipping points to site selectors for manufacturing, especially on in the office side. So there's a couple of things, but then that brings questions. Where would you put the panels? Well, you got land to the west of data dimensions are a little bit going that direction. You've got some land right behind Building 1, Building 2 before the land slopes away, or you work a little way to the north. So
Put them on the roof of Building 1.
yes and no. That's been brought up, and then there's issues and challenges with that as opposed to a single array out in the middle of the area immediately behind them. There's plus and minuses to the roof approach too. And we've explored that had a solar provider over from Storm Lake, had one up from Iowa City, and had one from Fairfield that were recommended, all from the Iowa Economic Development Authority that we'd talked to, and met and got a variety of different opinions on all of that. But that is something we've tried to explore to differentiate the park and also work with a couple of folks, because that's what's happening nationally.
Did you say there was a light manufacturer? Looked at it twice?
Yes, I did say that.
Can you give me an example of a light manufacturing situation? Like
As opposed to John Deere,
right.
then it would be somebody who maybe,
It could be like Balk Line down on First Street that has CNC machines that makes little parts for something that goes to John Deere
you're right,
for a bigger
right,
item.
exactly, yep, good point, Mayor, yeah.
You're welcome.
That'd be an example. They'd be a light manufacturer. They make, in that example, they make a product that ends up going to heavy manufacturer, but yeah, great example.
I understand all about the CNC machining, so that's perfect. Yes, my son is a CNC machinist.
There you go.
So you nailed it.
Bam.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I guess the other thing, are you looking more for high-tech innovation as far as manufacturing, for light manufacturing? Like 3D printers are doing just about everything now?
Yes.
All the above.
Consider anything.
Yeah.
But, there's been a couple suspects or interest level that we said, this isn't the right place. It's not right for a small food processing plant. Nope. It's not zoned, and that's not part of the vision there. And I meant to say this earlier, I'm glad you brought that up. Wind the clock back to 2002, most of the primary jobs in this community were occurring down off of manufacturing meadows. And so there was intentionality by everybody involved to say, let's get up into Lyons. Not by accident that was the first word of the name of the park, because there was an intentionality to have a balanced approach to bring some of those primary jobs and work activity to the north end of this community too. And again, because of that three-way partnership, I would say we've made good progress.
All right.
Thanks, Dennis.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir.
I've been sent a text message by my bride that I need to leave and go pick her up from work.
All right. See ya. All right. Moving on. We'll start this. Councilmember Shemmers. Anything? Nope. Councilmember Witt. Seeley.
Nope.
Councilmember Davis. Nope. Councilmember Mussman.
Nope.
Councilmember Kearns.
I would encourage everyone out there that, whether you're interested or not, to take the library survey, and you can go to the Clinton Public Library Facebook page to access the survey and give your feedback one way or the other.
Cool.
Councilmember Oberon, final thoughts?
Hey, just want to thank everybody for thinking of me last week. Thanks for the flowers. They were real nice. Madonna loved them. And I hopefully will be with you physically next council meeting.
Awesome.
Can't wait.
All right. Thanks, Greg. Stay well. We are adjourned.
Can't challenge you with push-ups.
Who?
Not to the number of pets, but to